The pandemic has only deepened Minnesota's housing crisis, with the state now facing a shortage of 50,000 housing units. Senator Kari Dziedzic is the ranking DFL member of the Senate Housing Committee, and I spoke with her about what's needed to improve access to affordable housing. During the Senate floor debate on the omnibus housing budget bill, you said this isn't a bad bill, but it is not meeting the moment. What did you mean?
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me to come and chat about housing. It's a I'm very passionate about it. Being on the Housing and Tax Committee, we have housing discussions in both of those committees. What I meant about it's not meeting the moment is the status quo is not working. From the pandemic to the death of Mr. Floyd, to the many people experiencing homelessness in our parks last summer, to the conviction of Mr. Chauvin, it has been a tumultuous year. The pandemic made people reevaluate and they want some changes. The pandemic showed the importance of housing. How do you stay home if you don't have a home? So I think people are ready for some changes. They want to see us do something. People want action. And unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of investments in this bill that can actually help people go home.
The bill provides a phase out for the eviction moratorium that was put in place because of the pandemic. What is important for people who are behind on their rent to know?
They should really talk to their landlords. There are federal dollars that are coming to the state of Minnesota for help. And so we need landlords and tenants to work together. They should go to renthelpmn.org, literally renthelpmn.org. And there's a list of their documents that they'll need to apply. There's a link to apply. The money is coming here. It's an extraordinary time with an extraordinary amount of money that can help us. And so we don't want people evicted. We want people to get that money and to stay in their homes.
The fact that Minnesota is 50,000 housing units short was mentioned several times on the Senate floor, and it's just a huge number. Like I thought about it for a minute. 50,000, that is really a big number. Is it even possible to catch up?
We don't have an option. Failure is not an option. Housing is important to individuals and our economy, so we have to keep trying and we have to keep moving forward.
And ideas for how we might be able to get in front of that number?
I think the bill had some policy changes that hopefully might help. And then, I mean, it truly takes an investment. We need to actually build more housing. And we also are going to need to figure out a way to help people stay in their homes. So it is a combination. And quite frankly, it's going to take a lot of creativity, and we're going to have to come together and truly think outside the box because we cannot fail.
And so, but kicking the can down the road is just not an option at this point.
Correct. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. We need to take action, and we need to take action now.
The Senate's housing budget package includes a provision that would ban municipalities from enacting rent control. What is your view on rent control?
Well, many cities are looking at ways to stabilize rent. It is an economic development issue. We've heard from cities all across the state saying, we need housing. We need more affordable housing. We have jobs, but we can't find people can come and work for here, but they don't have a place to live. And so people need to, it's going to take a lot of effort, but I think communities want to find a way to stabilize housing. My city, Minneapolis, is looking at ways to stabilize housing. I think it's a pretty hot topic right now. And if they're going to put it on as a vote in November, and I've had conversations about them as what's the best way to help and who are they helping. And I think as Minneapolis and other cities look at how they stabilize housing, I think they are going to have to look at, again, who are they trying to help? We don't want to further displace other people. We don't want to gentrify some areas. And so, again, it's going to take a lot of creativity, but we're going to have to make sure that we don't have unintentional consequences.
On the Senate floor, Senator Lindsey Port, pointed out that housing is the only public service that you can qualify for but not get assistance. Why is that?
Federal dollars have not kept up. So people can qualify for a public housing voucher, but that doesn't help if there's no openings. So last June of 2019, I think it was, the years kind of merged together there, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the Met Council, so three of our largest housing redevelopment authorities and public housing authorities, they had opened up their wait list. Minneapolis has not opened up the wait list for about 10 years. There were 45,000 applicants. So of those applicants in Minneapolis, about 72% were female-headed households, 50% were households of children, 38% had a disability. The average income was $31,000. And so you think about that, I mean, that's 35% of the area median income in Minneapolis, in the metropolitan area. There's just the lack of affordable housing at that level. We need some deeply affordable housing at 30%. And so, you know, if we just don't have the housing units, if you can get a voucher, but you have no place to go, that's not helpful. So I have a bill, Bring It Home Minnesota, that would help people in that 30% range, help them pay for about 30% of their housing. And so it's kind of a substitute or a supplement the federal bill. But, you know, bottom line is the feds need to put more money, and then we need to figure out if we aren't building that 30% area, if we aren't building housing for that 30% area median income, then, you know, maybe we need to provide assistance for more people to live in some of those units that cost more than 30% for people making 30% area median income.
You represent an area of Minneapolis, and on the Senate floor, Senator Draheim said that the discrepancies in home ownership between white people and Black African Americans is the largest in the nation in Minneapolis. Cities like Asheville, North Carolina, and Evanston, Illinois, are looking at reparations programs that would provide down payment assistance to African Americans. What are your thoughts on something like that?
So a lot of the cities and a lot of the public house, a lot of the housing authorities across the state right now do have some of that first-time home buyer assistance. Minnesota Housing Finance has programs that help first-time home buyers in closing costs. The gap between white ownership of housing and people of color in Minneapolis and in Minnesota is it's just not acceptable. There are a lot of historical reasons for that. And I think we have made some changes in the past where there were covenants on the houses before saying people of color, Black people, could not purchase that home. And so we have allowed those to be removed. We've done a few things to break down some of those barriers, but you know, affordability is still a barrier, and then helping people with those closing costs, because it is getting people in your home, and then it helps build wealth, which is, I think, another thing we need. But, you know, I think those first-time home buyer programs, the regular traditional banking programs aren't necessarily working for a number of people, but I think the Minnesota Housing Finance Program, they help about 35% more people of color than those traditional programs. So I think we are doing some things, but again, we need more money. And I don't want to say money is always the answer, but sometimes it is about just getting people more money to help with that first time home buyers costs, those closing costs. If you're paying $1,000 for an apartment and you can get an equivalent home for less than $1,000, it just makes sense to move people to that home. But sometimes, you know, it's the closing cost, it's the you know, additional money down for insurance and all that. So if we can help people get that closing costs, we can help maybe move some more people into actually more affordable homes.
Yeah, down payment, just coming up with the down payment alone can be quite a challenge. So, and I've heard from both Republicans and DFLers, home ownership builds wealth, it improves education, it improves health, it improves overall the welfare of people. So you've laid it out, but just to kind of close on this note, what are the biggest obstacles to progress?
I think affordability is key. If you look at the home ownership issue, it is how do you get those closing costs? People might be able to pay month to month, but they just need that help getting that 10 or 20% down payment. And so I think, how do we best reach people where they're at, to explain it to people and to help them find, you know, what they're comfortable with. And then right now there's actually, I think there are, for home ownership, there's about 50% less homes on the market right now than there were a year ago. So if there were 7,000 this past March, there were 17,000 in March 2020. And so that shortage is increasing the cost. And so that is, you know, affordability is one of the issues. And so again, helping people find that home is good. And then if you look at when they've looked at people experiencing homelessness, 56% said they couldn't find an affordable place to live. And so I think affordability for getting people into affordable apartments and affordability for getting people that help to get them into a home that they can afford, they just need that extra help to get in that home. I think those are some big barriers that it will take an investment.
Senator Kari Dziedzic, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.